Shalom and welcome everyone to the ICEJ webinar series. I'm David Parsons, one of the vice presidents here at the International Christian Embassy in our Jerusalem headquarters, and our senior spokesman. Of course, we're day 47 of Israel's war with Hamas, so we're going to be talking about that again today, and particularly the media battle over Israel with our guest Gil Hoffman, the Executive Director of Honest Reporting. And tomorrow we'll have another webinar, 3 o'clock Israel time, with General Amir Avivi talking about Israel's multi-front war. We'll have a former Israeli general, he's still in the reserves, talking about Israel's strategy, how much progress. We'll have lots of questions for him. But today, this never-ending media battle over Israel, and of course it always intensifies when you have a conflict. And helping us deal with this today is our friend Gil Hoffman. He formerly was the chief political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post, but over the past year or so, he's moved over to be executive director of Honest Reporting. This is more than just fact checker. This is someone who, they monitor the media and look how they're spinning things and might take facts here, but twist it the wrong way, and how there's a lot of media bias against Israel that really intensifies in times of conflict. Gil, good to see you.
Good.
Yes. Let's get into, what Israel has been facing over, almost 8 weeks of conflict now. You sort of almost expected all the different elements, the protests around the world, the bad media reporting. But first, let me focus on the headlines of the day. This hostage release, which Israel, the various levels of the Israeli cabinet, war cabinet, security cabinet, the full cabinet approved it last night. It looks like it'll kick in tomorrow on Thursday. But how is it being reported? How is it playing out in the media? How do you see the coverage going on this? What's the good and the bad of this?
Well, first of all, we just want to have our hostages home. 240 people have been away from home in the hands of terrorists for 47 days now, and people are praying for their health and safety. It would have been nice if the IDF would have rescued more of them. Mm-hmm. They rescued only one. And Hamas is a very cynical, nasty terrorist organization that plays with human feelings and now wants to divide the people of Israel using these prisoner exchanges, unfortunately is a word to describe what's going to be happening. They're not releasing 50 hostages. They're trading them for 150 terrorists that Israel will have to release from Israeli prisons, just like apparently the 50 Israelis released are going to be women and their children. The terrorists being released will be women and children too. And they said that they're not going to be terrorists. They're not going to be murderers who are going to be released, which is a very nice way of saying there will be attempted murderers that are going to be released. And so already the family members who were injured by these people who tried to kill them are raising an uproar. The 150 who Israel is going to be releasing, their names are already out there because there's a possibility of appealing to Supreme Court. Whereas for our people, they're not saying who they are yet. Hamas will only reveal it at the last minute to play with our emotions. They're not doing anything on a humanitarian basis. They're trying to get Israelis to fight again.
Yeah, there's always this asymmetry, and whenever Israel fights these terrorist organizations, they don't fight fair. But do you see a possibility, say, are journalists going to be allowed into northern Gaza where there's a lot of destruction? Is Hamas going to be presented in the global media, the mainstream media, as the humane one and releasing these captives, and that they're the ones who wanted a ceasefire?
Yeah, they're certainly, Hamas is going to be getting some good press here that they do not deserve.
Yes.
Equating they're releasing 50 women and children, but they're getting back 150 women and children, like equating, a baby
Yes. Yeah.
that they kidnapped with someone who tried to blow up a bus, right? That's
Really,
going to.
there was someone who tried to plant a bomb on a bus that's being released. Ay, ay, ay. I know that they described it in the Israeli media overnight as some stone throwers and a couple women who might have tried to stab someone with a knife, but couldn't get away with it.
So also the fact that they're going to be releasing only 10 or to 12 at a time over 4 days now sets a precedent. They have 240. So after these 50 are gone, we need 19 more days of ceasefire in order to bring home our hostages. They don't even know where all of them are. They don't control all of them, not even all the kids. And Israel's not done with this war. Israel still needs to go into southern Gaza in order to complete the operation, in order to restore security, or the Hamas who fled there are just going to go back and rearm.
Yeah, hopefully they get some information out of these releases on where some of the others are, and we do get some rescues and not just releases. And hopefully, without as many hostages in the way, it makes it Israel's job easier in going and mowing the grass in the rest of the Gaza Strip. Look, you broke the story, I guess, around 10 days or so ago about these 4 Palestinian photographers, photojournalists, who their photos and reports are picked up in some of the major Western media like the Associated Press, Reuters, New York Times, NBC, that they were embedded with Hamas terrorists who came across the border. And tell us a little more about that and how you found it and what sort of impact it's had.
We received tips from media outlets themselves who didn't feel comfortable with their organization employing people who are unsavory people who had posted all kinds of disgusting things on social media and everything. And
if I can, let me just let me see if I can
share the article with the
photo.
If you go to honestreporting.com, the article is still there on our homepage. So Honest Reporting, first of all, is a media watchdog that's pro-Israel. It's been around for more than 20 years. And we, first of all, try to work with the media to try to help them get the story right the first time. Yes, there's our friend Hassan Asliach.
Here he is on the day of the attack at tanks near the Erez crossing. He called it a glorious day, didn't he?
Okay, so the post in which he called it a glorious day was the day of the October 7th. Yeah. This kissing of Sinwar is not from that day, it's from before, but still very, very problematic. So we asked questions of how journalists, photographers knew to be there so early in the morning. We didn't say we knew they were embedded. We didn't say we knew they had foreknowledge. Apparently Nasrallah didn't even know, or at least he claims that of Hezbollah. But we still asked, why were they there so early? These are people who sold pictures that day to AP and Reuters, who later were hired by CNN and by the New York Times. And so it turned out that this particular gentleman, Asliach, was very close to the heads of Hamas and has been for a very long time and has put out a lot of incitement on social media. And so he got fired because of our investigation from both the Associated Press and CNN, which should have vetted him better and found that picture with Sinwar, that he should have never hired him in the first place. And if it weren't for honest reporting, he would still be a source for news from people around the world. Someone who celebrated what happened on October 7th, took photos of things that he should have been stopping.
Was he
not
on like a
celebrating.
retainer with these media outlets, or
CNN hired him on
contractual
October
arrangement?
10th.
Yeah.
And the Associated Press started taking his pictures that day. They might have been previous conflicts, I don't know.
Mhm.
Look, Israel's made a decision not to let journalists come in from Israel into Gaza. And so the media outlets rely on regular Gazans. Now, these Gazans went over into Israel. They do not have permission to go into Israel. They were people who were going into Israel that day were going to murder and rape and kidnap. And they were among them.
So
That is the problem.
they are at best eyewitnesses of war crimes and at worst accomplices.
Correct. And this gentleman, a terrorist accomplice, Asliach, is the 8th journalist who either praised Hitler or Hamas, who has been fired or suspended since I took over Honest Reporting 16 months ago.
Oh my! So that's great work in digging this out, and I mean, part of it shows the power of social media today, the alternative media rather than the legacy, the newspapers, the television, and such. That you know, I tell you, the social media surrounding this war is horrendous. And a lot of it is controlled state-based, state-sponsored media manipulation by fake bots, isn't it?
Yes. And look, there are a lot more Muslims around the world than there are Jews, you know, a billion compared to 15 million. And there are 25% of the Arab and Muslim world is unemployed and educated. And so they've got a lot of time on their hands to be on social media. And that's why we need all the help that we can. You know, Honest Reporting is focused on mainstream media for 20 years. When I took over, I said, now we're doing social media too, monitoring it, because a lot of more people get their news now among young people from TikTok and Instagram than they do from regular news sites. And so 2022, the content of Honest Reporting was viewed by 4 million people around the world. 2023, 104 million so far. Since October 7th, 70 million, of which 45% are under 25, 74.5% under 35. I'm 46, 90% younger than me.
Wow. You're trending among the young folks, Gil. Congratulations on your hard work and well-desered that it's
getting out of the echo chamber. So that's why I encourage you to share. Go to honestreporting.com, click subscribe, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, so you could share that content.
Yes, very simple. honestreporting.com, and you'll have all the links to their other social media there. Gil, you know, this is just not another round. You know, we have the second Intifada, this rocket war, that war, 2009, 2011, 2014, the second Lebanon war of 2006. It's just one after the other. But this one's different, especially because of what happened on October 7th, the mass pogrom against Jews and the rapes and mutilations and burned bodies, really just horrible carnage. And how has the overall media coverage been so far? It seems there was a lot of sympathy in those first days, but then it turned against Israel once the bombing campaign starts in Gaza. And Israel is usually not so good, the official channels not so good in responding to all this, but are they doing better now?
Okay, so we've got two different questions there. How is the media doing, and how is Israel officially doing in responding to it?
Yes.
So first of all, on how the media is doing, I think you hit it right on the head there, David, that the first couple days we had positive coverage. They had newspapers around the world put the picture of a young Israeli woman named Noah Argamani being dragged into Gaza. Again, how did those photographers get there so fast? With the headlines, "Don't Kill Me" in the Daily Mail, "War Crime" in the New York Post. The Australians cover said Israel's 9/11, unbearable cruelty of terror savages. And as time went on, the coverage got less good. First CNN was really sympathetic. Anderson Cooper was here and he cried about what he saw in the bomb shelters from the dance festival where so many young people were murdered. Dana Bash, one of the top anchors there at CNN, read the Kaddish memorial prayer on live TV. But then already by day 3, you had John Vaus, one of the top anchors on CNN, said 9 million Palestinians live in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas in the world.
9 million.
Okay, they're off by only 7 million, and it does not crack the top 80 most densely populated areas in the world. Tel Aviv does. Then, David, do you want to guess what the most densely populated city on Earth is?
I know one of the most populated regions is Holland, in the Netherlands, but I would say something like Mexico City or Lagos, Nigeria, or Tokyo, one of those areas.
Those are all great guesses, and they're all above Gaza on the list. The answer is Manila.
Manila, Philippines, yeah.
Yeah, never been there. Anybody here want to invite me from Manila? I'll be happy to come. Gil@honestreporting.com. So the CNN, it got worse over time. The New York Times was much quicker in giving negative coverage, already saying hours into the war, the headline, "Gaza and Israel go to war after militants launch attacks." So already equating, the people murdered by 1,200 people, it's like saying, airline passengers spar with other people who wanted to fly those planes on September 11th. Instead of talking about what we've been through in the largest number of Jews murdered in one day since the Holocaust. Every day away from October 7th, the coverage gets worse and worse and worse. October 7th is already completely forgotten by too many media outlets, and we cannot let that happen. We have to remind the world why we are taking steps now to restore our security.
Now we get to Israel's Hasbara efforts, and
yes,
they've been showing this film, 45 minutes. I saw it along with your wife, Mayan, and there was a photo that went out of us, our reactions. I found some footage on social media that was even worse, and they actually go easy on us. There's even worse than that out there that the Arabs were gleeful about. But is it helping to show this to some of the media outlets in private sessions where you go and look, and every week you have more? Is it still keeping the memory of what happened that day alive and fighting a lot of the denial against it?
Look, I think they were really smart in instead of just releasing this on the first day they had it, and then it would make some headlines and gross a lot of people out and then be forgotten. Instead, they've been showing it to influencers around the world, little by little. Your journalists, your ambassadors, your spokespeople for international Christian embassies, and your other really important people. This week, it was shown by
Gilad Erdan
at the United Nations. Gilad Erdan, and that had an important impact too. And here, but that's a good way of maximizing what they're doing. And to answer your earlier question about Hasbara in general, about Israel's public diplomacy efforts, I think they're better than they ever were before. I think they were a lot quicker than ever before. In the past, they didn't care about how we're seen around the world. the current leadership of the IDF realizes that winning on the media battlefield is the key to winning on the military battlefield. A quote originally attributed to Osama bin Laden, out of all people, has become popular lately in woke circles. It's true. And so in the past, it took the IDF days, weeks to respond whenever anything looked really bad that Israel did. When the Al-Ali hospital reports came out, and the entire world, journalists reported what the Hamas health department said, as if it's
500 dead at the Baptist
500
hospital.
dead, and mostly women and children, as if it's gospel from Jesus.
Yeah.
That is obviously true, even though it came from Hamas. It took the IDF 4 hours to bring conclusive evidence that it wasn't Israel, that it was an errant rocket by Islamic Jihad, that didn't hit the hospital, it hit the parking lot. Maybe 50 people killed, no more than that, which is still a tragedy, but not our fault. So it's not 4 seconds like the media has patience for, but 4 hours, a lot better than 4 weeks.
And it was in the middle of the night, I remember, but it was good that Israel didn't wait till morning. They got it out there as soon as they can for media west of us to already have it.
Sure, Kenrikus, the spokesman, he gave it to CNN first, exclusively, and then to the media around the world.
And by the time President Biden landed, he said it looks like the other side did it. It was, it was an own goal, which was very important. It was his big official visit here, and that was as he was flying here, that happened. And within a couple of hours, they show it was an Islamic Jihad stray rocket. Very good work on that.
Israel's come a long way in defending itself, and this is important because public diplomacy is what gives Israel more time to get this effort done to restore its security. Past wars in Gaza lasted only a few days, and the international pressure shut them down. Okay, we're going to get a 50th day of this war this weekend. If you would have asked me, David, on October 6th, is it possible that Biden will let Netanyahu run a 50-day war in Gaza? No way. And here it's happening. Why is it possible to happen? Well, first of all, there's the international legitimacy because of what happened on October 7th. There is an understanding also that if we don't defeat terror, terror will be emboldened around the world. There's the unity inside Israel that gives us more strength and legitimacy. There's some American politics involved. In what way, I don't really know yet. But it's also because the media look terrible. The pressure, directly or indirectly, would be coming from the media. And with what happened with that hospital that day, and our discoveries at Honest Reporting, and the AP guy that we got fired, and the New York Times Nazi that they rehired, all these incidents, one after another, all have put egg on the face of the media, which weakens the pressure on President Biden and other world leaders and allows this war to end successfully.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. You got to be diligent, but it's a battle for truth that to catch up with the lies that spread so fast. There's a real battle when you talk about media pressure on Israel, a real battle around these hospitals used by Hamas as human shields for and for military purposes. Of course, they found evidence that hostages were held at the Rantisi hospital. And what's been found
Children's
around
hospital
and Al-Shifa, how is Israel doing in that battle? Because you see the BBC and CNN saying, what they've shown so far is kind of weak. How do you think they're doing there? Seems very cautious approach, but finding the stuff of substance.
Look, David, it could be better.
Yeah.
I mean, we were hoping to go into Shifa and kill Sinwar and Deif, the leaders of Hamas, and bring a whole bunch of hostages home, and dozens of them.
I said Israel's telegraphing its punches too much. They're coming for days. They're getting closer and closer.
Exactly. They made fun of the spokesman's unit of the army on Eretz Nehederet, our satire show last night, They showed the spokesman saying, well, and we're going to be going to the south, but this time we're not saying that we're going in exactly 3 days at 3 p.m. You know, yeah, we didn't end up riding into the sunset back from Gaza with dozens of hostages, and it's disappointing. We raised some expectations there on a couple different fronts, to the point that anything that we've presented, even if it's very impressive, is disappointing, not only to BBC and other hostile media outlets, but to people who love Israel too.
Yeah, but I do think Hamas never releases any hostages this early, this easily, and for a 3-to-1 swap. Even though you can't draw moral equivalence between the Israeli hostages and these terrorists being freed from jail, by Hamas, Israel Hamas standards, it's pretty good. And I think it's because Israel, their steady advances. Basically, Hamas was about to lose control over its hostages. It wouldn't be able to have a unified processing of them, and I think that has forced Hamas's hand to at least start freeing some of them.
Please God, may this be something, as you said, that will lead to Israel being able to discover hostages based on what they hear from the ones who've come out, and
what they're seeing, where they're coming out from. Yeah.
I mean, the drones aren't allowed to be in the air, but we have satellites, so it's kind of a weird demand, and we'll see. Let's hope that this leads to really good news finally, because we had only one Ori Megadish, one young woman, come home, and that's the only positive that we've had the whole war.
Yeah. One of the real pressure points on Israel in the media, it's not only been the hospitals, but the doctors in them, along, getting quoted, doctor this and doctor that. He says, no power, no lights, babies are dying, whatever. And you don't know whether they're true Hamas loyalists or they're afraid of Hamas. And it's kind of like calling up Dr. Mengele in the middle of World War II, and he's complaining that he doesn't have enough twins, they're all dying, we got to do something. It's really crazy to go and rely on sources that are very likely Hamas loyalists themselves.
Absolutely. When you watch anyone from Gaza, wherever you are around the world, please realize that they're saying what Hamas wants them to say because they don't want to die. And that includes journalists, that includes doctors, any kind of expert. It's a problem. Whereas when you're watching Israelis, you're watching real, genuine people who aren't told what to say by the government. You had even a particular kidnapped person was released and criticized the Israeli government, not only before she left, but after. Because she was one of the leaders of protests against the Israeli government before the war. We're real with all our words.
Yeah, I know Israel, the medical profession here is one of the real shining examples of Jewish-Arab coexistence, working together every day in the hospitals and all. But there's been doctors in Shifa that are being quoted by the media. I think there's a photo of one that surfaced. He was holding a gun a few years back and doing something really, why they rely on him so much. I'm curious, usually in these clashes with Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Israel is always giving, they're honest about the casualties they're suffering, but they're also giving a running count of what the enemy is suffering, their casualties. But the IDF isn't doing that, and it's left Hamas to put out a lot of crazy figures that might be inflated, that might be underestimates.
It's not the Israeli army that's supposed to be counting how many people have died in Gaza. I talked to the Israeli Health Department. They say it's really, really hard to keep track of because they don't really have records in Gaza, and the population registry goes by name, father's name, And the Hamula, the group of extended family group that they're part of. It's very complicated. What the Hamas is doing very cynically is they're including all deaths as if they're all caused by Israel.
Yes.
People die from smoking every day around the world, right? So we didn't tell them to smoke, and people die of old age and all kinds of
They have
things.
heart attacks from.
They also die from being hit by Hamas rockets.
Yes,
which is
exactly.
happening every day. And yet it's all one big number. They've not kept track of any civilian deaths the entire war. So people need to be very careful when they listen to those numbers.
Okay. There's also this battle over the really chilling concepts of genocide, war crimes in the media, where a lot of media is just allowing all sorts of people to spout accusations against Israel. How is Israel doing in that battle? The official Hasbara and the rest of us who are fighting this.
Okay, so we need to be telling the world that genocide is what Hamas attempted to do to us. They went from house to house, trying to kill as many Jews as they can. That is exactly what genocide is. While we have told the Palestinians in Gaza, move further south where you won't be harmed, we sent leaflets and text messages and everything to get them away. And yet people are still saying seriously that Israel is committing genocide. I was very appreciative of John Kirby, the Defense Department secretary in Washington, who, when he was asked about Biden being called Joe Genocide by left-wing extremists, he said, no, what Hamas is doing is attempted genocide, and what Israel is doing is absolutely not. So we have to be thankful. Look, I know that there are a lot of people in America watching this who didn't vote for Joe Biden, but so far he's done a lot that Israelis really appreciate. Even the most right-wing Israeli politicians and the most right-wing government in Israel's history have been saying that what President Biden has done has been a very welcome effort.
Yeah, I think that for President Biden himself, someone like John Kirby, he actually shed a tear at the microphone one day. That what happened on October 7th did touch the raw nerve of the Holocaust, and they're not going to let that dissipate so quickly. Even a traditional Democrat like Biden, he's not always been the most principled supporter of Israel. Sometimes he's played politics. But I have to say, my sense is he's done an overall a good job in giving Israel the room it needs to deal with Hamas. Look, I've been just very upset with all the UN officials who are spouting this genocide, war crimes against Israel, ethnic cleansing, whatever you want to say, humanitarian crisis. Really, on all the media, and it's Human Rights Council, it's WHO, the World Health Organization, it's the special rapporteur. The one lady, Francesca Albanese, is particularly irritating. But and UNRWA officials as well. But for me, a lot of this screaming and yelling was trying to stop Israel from rolling into Gaza like they have and exposing how the UN itself and UNRWA have aided and abetted. It takes a village, Hillary Clinton says, and it took everyone operating in Gaza to develop this death culture that Hamas inculcated in several generations in Gaza. Is there any media really looking into this seriously, how the UN itself has been complicit and shouldn't have a role there? Is anyone really exposing this?
I sure wish there was. The person exposing it is a veteran journalist named David Badin.
Yes.
Bedein, and people should Google him and the work that he's done in exposing UNRWA for decades, because there the UN goes and then they judge us and they criticize us and they condemn us when a lot of what happened on October 7th is absolutely their fault. They educated people to hate, to anti-Semitism, instead of educating them for tolerance and love. And unfortunately, the United Nations has spread a lot of hate around the world and harmed a lot of people and resulted in a lot of deaths. They've done it was an organization that was intended to do a lot of good, and they've done a lot more harm than good from the Israeli perspective over the years, and it's a darn shame.
Yeah, I think it was very telling, very symbolic that in the Rantisi hospital in the basement, where they saw evidence, the rope around a chair leg and other evidence that hostages were held there, that there was a baby bottle on type of a World Health Organization, a WHO medical kit hanging on the wall. It just, they had to have known. And there was a U.S. Former U.S. aid director, all the U.S. aid to Judea, Samaria, West Bank, and Gaza, who said it's their worst kept secret. It's an open secret in Gaza that the whole, even the medical profession, UNRWA, everyone is in bed with Hamas. Yeah.
Yes. Too many international organizations have played a negative role. One of the clauses in the deal with Hamas is that the Red Cross is supposed to finally go see the hostages. Excuse me? Why have they not seen the hostages yet? Yes. If they were non-Jews, and a lot of them are non-Jews, but if it was elsewhere around the world, don't you think they would have been there on day one? Well, yeah. Why are they not there?
Yeah, the Red Cross has its own sort of history of at least the head office in Geneva, the International Committee. They let in all these Red Crescent societies, which kept Magen David Adom, the Israeli equivalent, out, and they were indifferent at best to. I don't know if they've ever helped in any sort of Israeli hostage situation over the years, but there were Christians who went and met with the head of the Red Cross about a month ago in Geneva. It was one of them was representing the Israeli government, but a Christian, and they said she actually seems to have a heart for Israel, and she actually went and met with Ismail Hania in Qatar this week. Yeah, so maybe something is changing there, but you're right. The Red Cross has been indifferent to Israel and Jewish suffering over the decades at best, and perhaps even anti-Semitic at times in some of their officials. Do you see any bright spots? Who gets a gold star in their media coverage, say among the foreign media, whether in the land or abroad?
Fox did not report that Israel bombed the hospital. The New York Post has repeatedly had positive coverage of Israel, and we appreciate. The Sun in London put a picture of all the different kidnapped on their cover, so people wouldn't forget, and that was already a month into the war. But in general, I don't recommend getting news about Israel, even now in times of war, from foreign media. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was at Northwestern, the top journalism school in the world in Chicago, they brought the foreign editor of the Christian Science Monitor to meet with students that wanted to work abroad. And he explained the way things work, how they send people for 3 years to Moscow, and then 3 years to Jerusalem, and 3 years to Beijing, and then maybe they get to go to Washington. I told him afterward, your business model doesn't make sense. By the time you know what's going on, understand the background, maybe a little of the language, you're leaving across the globe. So with all due respect, your local media, I think you should read to find out what's going on in crime in your neighborhood, and the sports scores, and the weather. If you want to know what's going on in Israel, please read the Jerusalem Post. The deputy CEO there knows what she's doing.
Very good. Full disclosure there. I just want to show this picture again right here and ask you who gets the kiss of Sinwar that's really been helping Hamas, who's really been unbearable in the way they're covering this.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Gosh, the last few days, the Washington Post has been surprisingly awful. You know, you'd expect there to be problems with BBC and Sky in England, and then the Guardian there, and in America, MSNBC is particularly problematic. But every day we open the Washington Post and we're shocked at how biased and anti-Israel the coverage has been. We weren't expecting that. It didn't used to be that way even a few months ago.
It's now owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a directive from him or just somebody there. There's something going on there.
And exactly what are they reporting?
My Washington Post guy is down there. Every day he finds something else that's very problematic that they've done.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think one of the what we call parachute journalism, the journalists, these guys come in from abroad, they parachute in and act immediately like they're experts on every subject regarding the Israel-Arab conflict, Israel-Palestinian. I think Christiane Amanpour gave us a good dose of it. What was it yesterday, talking to Ehud Barak, who she was very selective in her guests. She picked someone who has a real bone to pick, a revenge against Bibi, against Netanyahu, the prime minister. But he said there's these, Israel built the bunkers under the hospital at Al-Shifa. She says, what? I didn't know that. I mean, I thought everyone in the media knew this. That's showing her ignorance, but can you explain what we're talking about underneath Shifa?
Underneath Shifa is where the terror headquarters of Hamas, acknowledged by Washington, and Israel helped build this hospital. We used to control Gaza, and we tried to help the people of Gaza. So yes, we built hospitals, and Israeli architects built Shifa. And there were reasons for having things be underground, and
every big building has basements, hospitals and everything. You have basements.
Absolutely. You know, remember the only hospital that's really been bombed was the Israeli hospital in Ashkelon. The maternity ward was hit by a rocket, but the maternity ward was already moved underground, so nobody was hurt. That's what we do, and Christiane Amanpour, time and time again, has tried to make this a tit for tat, equalize symmetry in a false kind of way that's been very problematic. Do you want another bright spot, though, David? And I wanted to work in, because we're coming to the end here. The 15th of November, last Thursday, was a historic day because the BBC apologized not once but twice. First, they reported in the morning that with Israel going into Shifa, that they decided to go in and target Arabic speakers and medical personnel.
Yes.
Which would mean everybody there, right? When the truth is, they said they would be going in with soldiers who are Arabic speakers and medical personnel. And they apologized a couple hours later. They said this is beneath our editorial standards. And then later on that day, they said there were 10,000 people who attended the pro-Israel rally in Washington. There were 10,000, but there were also 280 other thousand people there and that they ignored. And later on, they apologized for that one too. You know, I've spoken to people who've been watching the BBC religiously for a lot longer than I've been alive. No one remembers them apologizing for their Israel coverage twice in one day, ever.
Never. Yeah, they've decided you can't use the word terrorism in connection with Hamas. They're not terrorists.
Well, President Herzog complained to Prime Minister Sunak about that, And the BBC then promised it would change, that they would say, maybe not immediately, but in part of their report, that Hamas is recognized as a terrorist organization by Great Britain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do see elements, and even in the BBC and CNN and a lot of their print, where they're balancing things out. They're giving, according to Hamas, they're saying so many casualties. There's no way to verify. Some may be from own rockets, and a lot, a lot of them may be armed combatants. But we just appreciate your time and input here, Gil. We pray for the best for you and in being a truth teller, a monitor of the media, important aspect of this battle. There's all kinds of accusations against the Jewish people in Israel, even on a nice sunny day. But this is a very difficult time, and it's a constant vigil that you're keeping, and all the best in that. Gil gave some information there in the chat on how to reach them, but it's just honestreporting.com. And if they want to write you, how?
Write action@honestreporting.com. If you want to report about anything you see that's problematic in the media, write Gil@honestreporting.com. If you want to invite me to speak in your community, I have speaking tours coming up in North America 4 times in 2024, just in England twice. I'm happy to go other countries around the world and tell people the truth. And if you could support Honest Reporting in any way, there are 2 buttons on our website. There's a red one that says subscribe, and there's a green one too. Please click on both. Thank you.
And I can recommend Gil as a speaker in better times. He is very humorous, very entertaining, and you enjoy hearing from him. Gil has the distinction, I think he's spoken in all 50 states. All 50 states. That's quite a...
And 7 of the 10 provinces in Canada.
Okay, working on it. Okay, Canada, inviting. Look, we got people in Asia, all Latin America, Africa, all over the world watching now. We appreciate your time. All the best to Gil Huffman, the Executive Director of Honest Reporting. It's at honestreporting.com, always battling the media and their coverage of Israel. And tomorrow, remind you, our webinar series will have Israel's multi-front battle with our friend IDF Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Avivi. He's head of the Israel Defense and Security Forum. We're going to be talking more about this hostage deal. I know he still has some reservations about it. Tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. Israel time, for tomorrow's webinar. This webinar will be up on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. So tell your friends, share it with everyone. And at 4 o'clock, top of the hour, stay tuned. Join us for our daily global prayer gathering with Christians from all over the world. Thanks for your time. Shalom from Jerusalem.
Thank you for joining us for this informative webinar. Be sure to subscribe to our social media channels or visit our website at icej.org for upcoming webinars and more ICEJ exclusive content.